Hello everyone, welcome back to Rebecca's Random Adventures. It has been a while. I have not made a vlog in like 7 months. If you're new here, I'm Rebecca, and 7 months ago I moved from Malaysia to America to start my PhD in social sciences. I'm having a great time here, been so busy. I'm mainly doing shorts and 2 travel vlogs, but I wanted to start making videos again, especially like chatty long form videos about my life here. So today's video I'm going to be talking about watercolor, how I got started doing watercolor during the pandemic, what equipment I use, not very fancy, and how really watercolor is about process art. It's about a certain mindset, and I'm going to talk more about that. These are the tubes that my friend gave me. They are Korean watercolors, Alpha brand, and they have served me really well. My friend gave me these tubes, and so I started becoming a tube watercolor painter. These tubes need a little bit of wiping, so I'm just going to go ahead and start wiping them. Do I have any objections to using palettes? No, but I think there are a few advantages to tubes. First of all, your watercolor is liquid. It stays liquid inside the tube. Well, in paste form. You're gonna have to water it down, but you don't need to get your brush and start working the palette, getting water in there and mixing it all up before you can use it. I pretty much can use straight out of the tube. This is just an old rag that I'm going to use to clean off any dirty bits. Another advantage is that if you have a palette and all your colors are sitting there, it can get messy, things can spill, and colors like yellow and white can easily get all muddy because you don't necessarily clean your brush super well before dipping it into the palette. And after a while, if you want real like white or light yellow, you're not going to have your colors stay as nice as you would like them to be unless you clean them off. I do like that the tube keeps my light colors light. It keeps my colors from blending with each other. In all, I have no complaints about using tubes. Maybe one disadvantage to using these would be that I'm a little bit doubtful about taking them on a plane with me. Like, I don't want TSA to confiscate my paints, and for that reason I am seriously considering when I need to upgrading to a palette, like a medium range palette, nothing too expensive but also nothing that's going to fade over time. The main difference between beginner student watercolors, besides like the texture, would be the texture and the quality, would also be light fastness. And you do want, like, if you've made a lovely painting, you do want it to stay the color that you created it rather than fading to all kinds of different colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, well then I have a 14th. And the reason why was the red in this palette was not red enough, and so I went and got a Daler Rowney Aquafine watercolor, which is not like super high quality. It's student grade, but it is crimson, and I wanted reds. You don't need every single color to start painting. You just need primary colors and black, honestly. You know, you can decide you want a deep and a light yellow and a deep and a light red, like a sort of pinkish one, and then a deep and a light blue. So let's say you have 6 of these and then you have black, and that's quite enough. The ones that are unnecessary are the ones you can kind of mix your colors. So like deep and dark, deep and light, so dark and light green. Browns you can mix yourself. Orange you can mix yourself. And white is kind of controversial with artists. Do you really need white for watercolor? You need a lot of white when you're doing acrylic art, but you don't really need it for watercolor because you can just add more water and then your painting will be like, then your shades will be lighter. But I do like it for some I kind of use it a little bit like a gouache white in a sense. Sometimes you need to correct mistakes, like you accidentally painted over the pupils, no, not the pupils, the whites of eyes, and you need to kind of fix that. I mainly use it to fix things and also to get maybe a little bit of a less like a more opaque, less bright color. This is my watercolor kit. Everything that I need for watercolor goes in here. It is pretty small, it's just a little bit longer than my hand, and thus very, very portable. Everything fits in here. It is perfect. You know what I used to use this for? I had this as a kid. One of the snaps are broken, but you know what? It works just the same. Nothing's gonna spill out. I used to keep these butterfly and flower little clips that were really popular in the 90s, and I had a lot of them. I used to keep them in here, and I never throw anything away that I can use. So digging through my cupboard of random things that I've kept since childhood, this kind of stood out to me, like, hey, that would make a very, very awesome watercolor kit. Right now I am cleaning it, so I'm going to reassemble the kit and show you guys how I use it and why I use it, because it is perfect. If you can find something like this for your watercolors, like, this is ideal, and let me show you why. First of all, it has my palette up here, which is where I mix my paints. Previously, I was using one of these cutting boards, an old cutting board, and I would just dab a little bit of paint and I would mix it, and then the whole thing would get really dirty. And being really, really frugal, I never really cleaned my paints off, because like if you clean it off, you're throwing away paint, and I don't like that. So this gives me a contained space. I can make all the mess that I want, mixing all the colors that I want, and I mix a lot of colors. There's no rhyme or order to this. There's no like, this is my red section, this is my... I like that there are kind of like dividers, just very, very faint dividers to keep different zones. Currently it looks like the red zone, the yellow zone, the black zone, which should not be together, but anyway, green zone, kind of a different blue zone, and also a blue zone. So I don't know what's going on. Painting is a very, very organic process, especially with watercolor. I could clean this off, but I don't want to, because I see quite a bit of red, quite a bit of these colors, and I don't want to waste them, so I'm not going to. It doesn't look pretty, but you know what, it's the way I like it. Okay, so my paints in tubes all go in here, and I think they fit. Do they fit this way? No, they don't. But you know what, they fit this way very, very well. And I have a little bit of rummage room, so I can like move things around, pick up the colors that I like. So this is all for the paint tubes. And again, it's very convenient just to grab a tube, squeeze a little bit on here, mix it up, and paint away. Okay, so that's looking a little tidier than it used to look. And then I have my paint brushes, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. Get a box that has a place for paintbrushes, and even my longest, newest, nicest paintbrush with its tip still pointy, my number 8 Princeton Select Round, fits here. Look at that, and it doesn't jam it up so that it destroys the point of this. The point stays pointy, which is the main thing with watercolor brushes. You want the points to stay pointy, but we'll talk about those in a little bit. Next, I have a teeny water container. I do like to be able to dip my brushes and mix them around, clean them that way. That was so ideal. And I don't have it with me now, but I usually put a pencil, sharpener, and eraser in here. Let's actually look for that. And you know what I put in here? And this is really funny. I put toilet paper. And also a little sponge. This was like a clown's nose or something in a kid's toy kit, but I realized that I do need a sponge now and then, and so it's a handy size for a sponge, and so I have it there. And then I just grab, sometimes I grab like, it's not used toilet paper, but things like I just wiped something with it, and I can just fold it up or get some new toilet paper or napkins or tissue and fold them nicely. These are used, I use them to wipe a few things, so I'm discarding them. This is very, very essential. You do need something to dab up. This doesn't work as well as toilet paper. This works more for like cleaning, scrubbing. Toilet paper, tissue paper just like dabs up things that you're working with. You put down some color, you don't like it. Great thing about watercolor is that you can dab it up and you can layer until you get the color and shade that you want. A little pencil sharpener that goes in here, and then a pencil and eraser can go up here. This is from the Dollar Tree. This is just clear transparent tape, and you just need lousy cheap tape to make a border or tape up different sections of your painting. The less sticky it is, the better. What I often do is just like make it less sticky on my hand and then stick it down on the paper, because if you use this straight away, it's going to tear up your paper. So let's talk about paper. What kind of paper I use, why I choose to use watercolor paper, and what I started out using. So let's say you're starting out and you only have printer paper in the house. You can start just practicing using printer paper, but I don't recommend you stay with it long term, because the quality of your paints, your brushes, your paper is going to affect how well you can learn the technique. So I'm going to grab my number 8 round brush and I'm going to dip it in this old McDonald's cup that I use. Waste not, want not, you know. Why get something expensive when this works pretty well and I can recycle it? So I usually use this while I'm in the house. This is nice because it's easy to stuff in my backpack. It's light, I can take it places, so I'm not limited to only this little container here. And it's nice and big, and it cleans my brushes and holds a lot of water. Right, so let's grab a little bit of red paint. Now, the first thing you want to know about watercolor is that you want to use a lot of water. You never paint with like thick paint straight from the tube or the palette. You even take from the palette and you mix it with more water, and you mix it with different shades, different colors. Let's just grab some of that. Let's do... See, that's not too bad. That is not bad at all. If you're starting out painting, I recommend getting just start with whatever you have. Let's do another stroke here. Now, the reason why eventually you want to get nicer paints, nicer brushes, and nicer paper is because you're never really going to develop the skill and really work with watercolor the way that it's meant to be worked if you're only working with this and with like a childhood paintbrush, random old thing, and watercolor paints that aren't actually watercolor paints. But when I first started out, I was working with strokes and making strokes. So let's do like a little bit of a rose here. Let's say it does make, like, it does become a rose. See? Okay. 2 reasons why I use the watercolor paper that I do use, which is the good paper. First of all, you're going to notice that when you paint with a lot of water, the paper buckles. Secondly, the colors are not going to be as vibrant here. And thirdly, the paint is not going to flow on the page. It's just going to sit there. Whereas with the good watercolor, the paint actually flows. I mean, it moves, right? But it doesn't move in the same way that it would on actual watercolor paper. And now you can see it is actually truly buckling and just, yeah. But if you're just practicing strokes, if you're just practicing how to hold, how to manage the brush, if you're testing colors, if let's say you're like, I want to get a very dusky shade of red and I'm going to mix it with brown, and that's going to make it very nice and dusky. I want more red, you know. If you're mixing, if you're experimenting, if you're playing around, just go ahead and use recycled paper. When I was first looking to upgrade to actual watercolor paper, I found this at the art store, and it's a Malaysian brand. It's really a really good deal. Like, it's $5 for 12 sheets of, it's double the size of ordinary paper, two A4 pieces, basically A3. It's 100% cotton, which is a lot better value than cellulose. So generally cellulose paper is paper like this. You do have art paper made out of cellulose, but if it's made out of cotton, it's a good deal. And it's 300 grams per square meter, so it is thick. Like, you want thick paper that's going to withhold all the water you're going to use on it. I will say that it wasn't perfect. I was able to make this piece of art, but as you can see, it does buckle. But I would consider it, currently I would consider it paper for projects, as well as paper for serious practice. And for serious, like, I really want to make something nice, I can use this. I will most likely tape it down to a surface, like, for example, tape it to this cutting mat from Dollar Tree, so that it stays flat while I work with it. And there are, like, even good quality paper does buckle. There are ways to tape it down and to do things to it afterwards to get rid of that buckle. These are two different brands of watercolor paper that I have bought here in the US. This is Master's Touch from Hobby Lobby, and this is Strathmore from Michaels. You can get these when they're on sale at like 50% off. That's a good time to get these. They're both acid free. Unfortunately, none of them really say what they're made with. Like, it doesn't say if it's cotton or cellulose, and then I'm just gonna assume, like, you know, they want to save money. They probably used at least mostly cellulose. Unless it says it's 100% cotton, it's not 100% cotton. They're gonna tell you that if it is. It's a good size, 9 by 12. They have slightly different textures, but I have to say I really like them both, and I use them for serious projects, and it's very convenient to just stuff one of these in my backpack with this. There you go, and I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to do watercolor anywhere outdoors that I want to do it. Let's talk about brushes. Very early on in my painting journey, I got these, and I will have to say that I'm pretty impressed. These are brush pens, and they have like nylon tips, I think, and they held their point pretty well for quite a long time. I got a small one, and then another small one, and a big one. Currently, these have been downgraded from watercolor to acrylic painting for various reasons. Let me just show you. Let's just grab some green. So it doesn't hold its tip very well. This is the big one. If I wanted to do leaves, I can do leaves. It's not too bad. But it can't really do thin lines. Well, now it can. So I would say, for all like the abuse that I have put these brushes through, they still work pretty well, and they do the job. Besides my water brush pens, I have paint brushes, and these are all round paint brushes. I literally have not stepped outside of the round brush box, but here they are, and they're all round brushes in different sizes. This was one of the first ones that I got, and then I got a couple of student ones and a slightly more expensive detailed brush. These four are all Daler Rowney. Compared to this other nondescript one, which has kept a decent tip. As you can see, I've been playing around with these. This can do a decent line. right? And that's one of the first ones that I started out with, and I did a lot of things with just this. It's called an 818 round. I have no idea what that means. It's a nylon brush. It did not keep its tip as well as this kind of brush. But then I got these student brushes, and let me tell you, this has basically no tip at all. I don't think it ever had one. But it was a cheap brush and I wanted to try it. Daler Rowney student brush. Let's try and get the thinnest line I can possibly get with this. See, that is a very thick line. You're not going to be able to do great detail with that. So, the smaller ones in this particular series that came together with it were all basically the same. They're nice fat brushes, basically flat brushes. Flat brushes at this point. I don't know why I keep them really. They're not really useful for acrylic painting either. I did get this detail brush from Daler Rowney, and that has worked pretty well, even though it's kind of like warped. Let me just show you the thinnest line I can draw next to. So that's pretty decent. With a detail brush, you're not able to do a lot in terms of like, you're not able to put a lot of water, and you can't really do like a flower with this. You can't, because you'll have to keep going back for more water, even though you have the control. You just have to keep adding water to do something even as simple as a rose, and you can't, like, unless you keep adding, like, it doesn't work too well. It's just good for like minute details and lines. I did get a second one. This is Princeton Select, and I did get, for the first time, something that I realized I needed all along that I did not have, which is a number 8 round brush. So let's put all of this aside. And this is new, and this is precious to me because it is a good brush, and I'm going to keep it that way. Alright. What you need is for your brush to be able to hold a lot of water. You need to go from a thin line. Let's do a thin line. Right, that's pretty thin as the detail brush, and then you can spread it out and do something like a fat, like petal or something, and then you can continue along with that, right? Thin, you can make it nice and fat, and that enables you to do something like a rose, flowers. You know, you can use it on the side and really get a nice big swatch of color. This is great. I would say, if you needed 2 brushes, get one round brush and a detail brush. And for me, that's probably enough to do something really nice. If you're just starting out, it does seem like Princeton Select is a pretty good brand all around, with decent quality brushes that last. I have not used this very long, but in that maintain like a point. Most tutorials for outdoor or plein air painting use watercolor palettes, where you have dry paint that you reconstitute with water. I think this tutorial is a little bit unique. I wouldn't say that I will never use a palette. I might try one day, especially to take on the Plein with me, not have the paints confiscated. But for now, I am so happy with this kit, and I feel like I have everything that I need. I don't need a ton of fancy supplies and brushes to really work on and I wouldn't say perfect, but develop technique. This series is all about becoming an empowered artist, which means that you don't have to follow tutorials every time and copy what other people are teaching you how to paint. This is a tutorial series that's going to show you how you can create things you want to create. So I'm going to start with practicing shapes, going from really simple and basic shapes and working up to any shape you want, because watercolor is just coloring with water, working with this kind of organic fluid medium that's going to do its own thing, that has a mind of its own, and that you kind of have to negotiate with and work together with, but also that is incredibly flexible. You can start painting whatever you want to paint, inspired by nature. You can paint or color in portraits of your family and friends as keepsakes. There's so much you can do with watercolor, and so the main thing is to start with the shapes. Doing any shape, drawing out, creating your own shapes, and learning how to work with the paint and bring those shapes to life. So see you soon!